There's a new movie coming out April of 2024 called Civil War. That's right, Civil War, April 2024. The movie was directed by the same director that did Ex Machina, Annihilation, and 28 Days Later. So in terms of the overall style based upon the trailer, it's going to definitely be an action thriller sort of thing. From what is seen in the trailer, and it's a short trailer and there's only one so far, is the United States of America at some point breaks into a civil war with what seems to be 19 states separating themselves from the rest of the country. Now, only 3 states were mentioned, and they were mentioned in a specific order that doesn't quite give the entire picture. One of the characters, which seems to be the President of the United States, refers to the state of Texas and the state of California as the Western Forces. An on-screen prompt also indicates, and you hear a voice talking about 19 states have seceded. So that may include those 2 states, but then there's also a reference to the Florida Alliance. So with the phrase Western Forces, my feeling is that Texas moving westward, effectively, if you count all of those states, seem to be part of that 19-state secession, with Florida obviously being on the southeast coast, being the alliance along with it. Problems that I have with that, and we'll get to another part within that, is right now, politically speaking, California and Texas have nothing in common. The only thing they share in common is that the, effectively speaking, center-right leaning voters and residents of California are leaving to go to Texas, and that's about it. Austin, as the capital of Texas, is the largest Democrat stronghold within the rest of the state, but there are no other similarities. So presently, I can't view a scenario where Texas and its mindset and California and its mindset, 2 completely opposite governing type of bodies, could be united together to secede from the United States, unless whatever was in Washington was so much worse than what either one of them could tolerate. And Florida, well, Florida is a fun state. It's probably just along for the ride, nothing more than that. As far as the other 16 states, we'll call them, still undeclared. Now, if you were to look at a secessionary envisionment, I could easily see, based upon today's politics, the way things are, the way people are voting, I could easily see Washington, Oregon, and California grouping together to separate themselves from what they feel are primarily more conservative views. And I could easily see Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Oklahoma, those states breaking away from what they might feel as a big blue encroachment. Many other states are purple, or they tend to be blue or red in one area or another. State of Illinois is a little more red than blue, but the city of Chicago, numerically speaking, outnumbers the rest of the state, and that leans more blue. It's just the way things are. But for 19 states to get together to say, yeah, enough is enough, we're out of here, it has to be something big. Another thing that you don't immediately notice unless you have subtitles on is that they refer to the 3rd term or the 3-term president, which, as you know, constitutionally speaking, is not allowed. You can thank FDR for that, because he was trying for term number 4 after World War II was over, and the country was like, yeah, no, we're done, boss. You need to move on. So something had to have happened where that sitting president had 1 term, had 2 terms, and then got a 3rd term, and that probably at that point is part of the catalyst for setting it off. Now, it seems to be the primary characters appear to be, 1, civilians, 2, appear to be journalists, and a lot of the clips involve either them as individuals wearing the flak vests that say press on it, carrying cameras instead of guns, documenting things and that sort of thing going on. And you hear through different parts of the narration the news reports about what's going on with the war, that the Western forces have received a resounding defeat from the United States Army. But then another scene cuts to the Western forces are advancing on Washington, and they'll be there July 4th. So it, to one extent, makes me wonder exactly what the cause could be. Now, in reference to the actor that plays the President of the United States, Nick Offerman, decent actor, funny person. his characters that he tends to play, when he plays them as effectively, if the character is supposed to have a certain political lean, he plays them not as comical, but more as a slightly inflated caricature of what a stereotype of that person's political identity would be. Whereas in the scenes for this film, for the few that he's in there, he definitely has a more serious, more stern, more, can't think of the good word to say it, almost a more hostile character air about him. So I don't know within the context of this film if his president is someone that has been pushed to a certain point and the gloves are off, or if this person is just the way that he is, and that again feeds into why the nation has gotten to the point that it's at. But a lot of this comes on what will effectively be the heels of a just released film, Leave the World Behind, which definitely has, to one extent or another, a political leaning, but the primary direction that the film goes for Leave the World Behind is the United States in utter turmoil after a series of cyber attacks and physical attacks, leaving the nation in complete chaos, which could almost segue directly into this film, even though they're not the same, they're not the same director, not the same film company, none of that stuff. It's just a matter of certain pieces being placed out on the table. That's not the entire puzzle. They're just certain pieces, but it's enough to give you an idea of what you're going to be looking at as you start filling in the blanks, putting more pieces together. It's one of those things where, again, it's fictional. It's meant to be entertaining. It's nothing more than that. There's nothing locked down and written in stone that says this absolutely will happen. But as we've all seen with various coincidences, 2-3 years later, something that happens in real life and someone goes, that's kind of familiar, and then you refer back to some movie, some TV show, some book that was written several years earlier, that while it's not a page by page, line for line exact parallel, it runs similar enough that it's not just simply, well, it's coincidence and that's the way the world is. It's one of those things where you almost feel either certain things were influenced on the real action from the fiction, the whole life imitating art situation, to that extent. And again, this is one of those things where 2024 for April, that's 6 months away from the election. Realistically, at the April point, most people have already determined, you already know who the candidates are going to be. You can tell how the campaigns are going, and it's really where they start ramping up from that April point going through up to the election, because effectively, if you haven't swayed the voters that you need by September at the absolute latest, your campaign is done. If you don't have it locked down with a high percentage of numbers behind you by September, you're done. You're just a placeholder for the set guys on the campaign trail to put you in certain photographs and say, oh, another person dropped out. So that's really about it. There's not much more right now on that particular film that I can talk about other than that one trailer. And other than that, it's just, again, something that if you glance past it and it's gone in a blink, you're not going to think about it until it actually comes out later on. And it's one of those things where keep it in the back of your mind. Is it just pure entertainment, or is it sort of their way? And by their, I mean the people that if I say their names, my video will get demonetized like it did in several other videos because I said those names. And it's one of those funny things, with free speech and everything, you have the right to say what you want to say, but they will quickly knock you down a notch if they don't like the names that come out of your mouth. Don't hit me, Will Smith. But with that being said, catch you guys in the next one.